right, welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related to leading yourself and leading others. I am John Laurito, your host, here today with a fantastic guest, Erika Del Sordo, who is a former news reporter and now a full-time voiceover artist and podcast host. Erika, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for that welcome. Thank you very much. It's nice to be here with you.
Yeah, it's great. Well, there's a few reasons. One, that I wanted to have you on the show. One is I think your story is great. I thought it'd be great to share with the audience. You got a lot to share, and I love your voice. I love it.
Thank
So
you.
I think people are in for a treat because they're gonna listen to this over and over again because you've got that soothing voice that is like listening to music.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So there's so many things I want to ask you about, but you've really got an interesting background. And maybe the best place to start is a little bit from the beginning of your career. You were sharing with me. Obviously, you are a former news reporter. You started, I believe, as a news reporter. Is that how you started your broadcasting career?
Actually, that came later. I had started writing news, but this all goes way back to, what's funny? I had wanted to go into police work when I was young. And so I started as a community service officer where I just basically did kind of like traffic accident investigation. I wasn't a sworn officer.
Hmm.
And I did that for a little less than a couple of years. And I decided after a few mishaps on the job, it was really bad. I had gotten injured a few times, and we'll leave it at that. But I said, I need a different career direction. And it was about 2000. It was 2001 when I kind of went. Well, I don't know. When I worked for the police department, anytime I'd key up on the radio, they'd be like, "You have a great radio voice." And I never saw myself doing that because I was always a very shy person. I didn't like being in front of the camera. I didn't like keying up on the radio where no one could even see me and it wasn't even a broadcast issue. And what's so funny is I ended up going to school. I went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale for 2 years, graduated in 2003. Didn't really like what I was doing at first in 2001. 2002, I started really liking it. 2003, I fell in love with what I was doing. And I realized this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. I feel very comfortable speaking. And it just, I had a great internship at one of the radio stations. I did very well at that. And then it moved on from there. And I do want to mention to folks, by the way, regarding internships, I still get phone calls for voice work and job offers from people from 21 years ago,
Wow,
from when I was doing those internships.
they pay
And
off.
just don't burn bridges,
Yeah.
do a great job and just be professional at everything you do because I'm still getting phone calls from people 20 years ago.
That's amazing. Well, obviously made a great impression. I believe so much in internships too. So for kids that are out there that are thinking about it, whether to do it or not, whether it's paid or not, doesn't matter. It's the experience, it's the contacts, it's all that. So that's great. So what's interesting though is you were shy. You were not somebody who would have at some point in your life envisioned yourself doing this. Was shyness was How shy were you? I mean, was it a big
I,
deal?
That's what's amazing. I did not like to get up in front of people. In school, if I won an award, let's say, or something, I'd make sure I was sick at home that day because I didn't even walk up. I didn't want to walk up onto the altar and receive my award. That's how shy I was.
Wow.
I
What?
wasn't such a shy kid, but I guess that came toward my teenage years, and I was just extremely shy.
Wow.
And then it just came natural. Later on, I did a WPVT2 pledge drive.
Hmm.
And I stood there as they were introducing, and my co host was introducing something, and I was shaking like a leaf, petrified, shaking. This was about, maybe 2012, 13. And all of a sudden, it was my turn to speak. And the moment I opened my mouth and started speaking, everything calmed down. I stopped shaking. I was completely calm. This is when I realized, like, this is really what I'm supposed to do
Wow.
because I
So were you
can't believe
surprised?
how
Yeah.
my speaking just calms me.
Were you surprised by that? Like, were you expecting it to be a bit disaster and
Yup.
you were in the zone?
I
Wow.
was expecting a huge disaster. I can't believe, if I showed you the video, you would never see my mouth quivering, but my mouth was quivering
It's
and
interesting.
it
Wow.
just stopped. I completely calmed down and
Yeah.
the show was great. We did a great job. It
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. So that was later on.
That's amazing. What? Well, it's interesting. First of all, people usually never seem as nervous as they feel because I talk to a lot of people and they're like, I can't, they do a presentation. Maybe I watch it and give them some feedback. They're like, I know I came across so nervous. I'm like, nah, actually, you always feel more nervous than you are. But
Hmm.
do you think that came for you? Was that just because that was your calling and that's your passion and your comfort zone? I mean, how does somebody find that? How does somebody does the how does somebody bring that out where they can go up on stage and just be relaxed, or did it just happen kind of naturally for you?
It just happens naturally. I couldn't
Yeah.
tell people how to calm themselves. I honestly have no tips. I started speaking and it just relaxed me, and I realized that I was supposed to be there, and everything came together. And I
Wow.
remembered it was half a script. Some of it was prompted, some wasn't. Um, and I don't know, it was just so natural. And I think that's when you realize that you're doing the right thing in life when it
Yeah.
comes that natural
Well, it's
to you.
interesting too, and I think a lot of that is stepping outside your comfort zone. You never would have known that had you not been in a position where you were facing a fear. You were nervous going into that. I think most people shy away from even those experiences that mentally give them any kind of anxiety. But you don't know. You can overcome that if you push yourself through it. And in your case,
Mhm.
you might just find that it's a life passion of yours and what you're really meant to do.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what's funny? So I did some news writing and everything, and it was the last gig I had before I went full time into voice work that I was a traffic reporter for 15 years on television and radio. Now, I was behind the scenes. I was a traffic reporter, but all you saw was the camera, and I would just speak over. It was a voiceover over the roads.
Hmm.
So I was never in front of the camera. So even starting my podcast was a huge deal to me because I'm not used to being in front of the camera. I'm
Yeah.
used to reporting traffic. I'm not used to interviewing people.
Yeah.
So this is all very, very new to me. But another
Wow.
reason why, when I had done that pledge drive, I'm just not used to being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And it worked out well.
I didn't realize that when you're a traffic reporter, you weren't on the camera. It was just audio. Was it
Mhm.
live or
Some are.
was it recorded?
It was live. We
Okay.
did traffic in the mornings from 5 to 9 a.m. every 15 minutes, and it was
Mhm.
live.
Wow. So
It was not
were you up
recorded.
in the helicopter? Are you doing it that way, or how was it?
No, no,
Did you fly?
actually, we did a tandem thing. There was a gentleman in the helicopter, and we did tandem traffic. It was Miami-Dade and Broward counties down south,
Hmm.
and if he was flying over an accident in Miami-Dade County, well, then he would take Miami-Dade, and I would report Broward County, and vice versa.
Ah.
So we did it like that. It was tandem traffic. He was in the helicopter, and I was sitting on the ground.
Yeah, live stuff has got to be nerve wracking because I do presentations live. In front of an audience. But when you're doing something like that, there's a lot of pressure on you too. Did you ever screw up?
Yeah, there were times when I was kind of like, "Whoa." And it's funny that you talk about my voice being so relaxed. I didn't mess up a whole lot, but there was one time I think I was talking about a roadway that only went east and westbound, and I said northbound, and no one caught it. And I say no one because in the news, people catch everything. And then
Yeah.
they call into the news station and they want to complain and write in, and I went, wow. And I asked the news station, I said, no one caught that. No one caught that.
Wow, that's
So we
interesting.
just kept going. But yeah, there were
Yeah.
moments when, oh goodness, the helicopter almost crashed once, and he
Wow.
let out a fantastic curse word. And it's just, there were moments when you want to say a bad word, and you're like
Yeah.
searching for it's something else. There, you've
Wow.
got drunk drivers, you've got
Oh yeah.
school zones, you've got pets that have been injured, and it's really tough to report on that live.
Yeah, I would imagine. So that's pretty fascinating. So then what happens next with your career? How long did you do that and then would you move on to?
Well, that's what I did for 15 years. I started in 2004. It was the end of 2004,
Hmm.
and I had worked up until 2019.
Okay.
And that's when I decided to move to North Florida. And this is when I made my own business.
Gotcha.
So now I'm full time voice work and podcasting. But it was prior to that that I had written news for NBC Universal down in Miami.
Wow.
And I had worked for the Miami Media School, and
Mhm.
I taught broadcasting, of course, and then I taught writing,
Uh,
the proper writing etiquette for news. And that was
Wow.
interesting. And within my company for 15 years, the 2 of those years, I was acting, director of operations. So I was the interim director, and then I stepped out of that and maintained my on-air status.
Mhm.
So it's been a busy career, and it's been a fun one.
What was your I mean, you were saying you wrote for NBC. That's gotta be a pretty exciting job. Was that fun
That was
or
interesting.
stressful?
It's funny because when you're sitting in the same spot and, like, you don't move, it's about 10 hours of just sitting in the same seat, but the news is always different. And that was the exciting part about it. There's
Mhm.
something new. And it's funny because I really enjoyed the police work being outside of the car and being just outside, period. And
Mhm.
I thought, how on earth am I going to sit still for 15 hours a day in one place? Well,
Yeah.
that's what's nice about what I did. Traffic was always different. There
Mhm.
was always I was on the edge of my seat because we were live every 15 minutes.
Wow.
News writing, you've got a different story every day. Although it was Miami, you definitely had several people die. It was just every morning was the same thing. So that
Wow.
gets a little bit monotonous. It's like,
Yeah.
seriously.
Was it high pressure? I mean, are you like under obviously you've got a deadline. You've got to write the
hmm
story before the live show. Was there a lot of pressure?
Yes, and that's part of actually the good part about it. The pressure is good because it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It makes the time go by fast.
Mhm.
And yes, there's a lot of breaking news, especially being in the Miami Broward County area. You always got breaking news.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. I have a twin sister, Julie, who was an intern
Oh,
at a TV station in Hartford, I remember. And she would tell me that there would be times where they're still typing the story into the teleprompter during the live show as the
right.
reporter is, as the anchor is going through the story. So the story's not even fully into the, so it was just that type of environment. I can't even imagine dealing with that kind of stress.
No, that's why you have to, think on your feet, improv. You've got to, and of course, traffic reporting for 15 years taught me that as well. All of a sudden, there were on a couple of occasions, and I think I have one of those demos. I think I have on erikadelsordo.com. When I'm in the middle of speaking and a car flips out of control over an embankment, and you better think on your feet. You got to
Wow.
talk about it.
Yeah, right. That's great. So do you think that I mean that's pretty amazing because most people don't get training about how to think on their feet. Somebody was asking me about this the other day. That's really valuable, right? I mean, how has that helped you to be able to deal with those situations and the unknowns that come at you so suddenly like that?
That helps tremendously. And it's been a learning curve. Obviously, when I first started in 2004, 2005, I didn't know how to do that. I was kind of by the script, by the book, here are a few accidents they'd give us, and then I'd write something out and I'd read it. And then just over the years, it became more comfortable to me to kind of make it a story, let it flow. It's like a swan, just let it flow and tell a story. And there's a car that flipped out of control, and you can't, scream, "Holy crap, look at that." You can't do that. So you're like, and now we have this accident over here. It's blocking the turnpike, and you just keep going as if you didn't
Right.
even
Right.
see that. And you just let it flow, and that all just comes with experience.
Yeah.
There's really not, because I've trained a lot of people doing what I do. You can't sit someone down and express to them and explain to them 14 years of experience.
Yeah.
You need to
Right.
let people just, you got to do it on your own, and it'll come to you. And if it
Yeah.
doesn't come to you, you're in the wrong field.
Let me ask this. I mean, there's a lot of people that, well, not a lot of people. Everybody have days where you wake up in the morning, you're just not feeling it. You're maybe something personally happened. You're dealing with a lot of stuff. It's weighing on you. I mean, when you're dealing with live shows, you have to bring your A game. How do you get yourself prepped for that? How do you change your mindset if you're really in a funk or in a bad mood?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because that has happened over the years. And you have to just maintain a sense of professionalism. I know that we were discussing just recently. October was a very difficult month for me. I was sick twice. My cat passed away suddenly. And it
Mm,
was just, when you're feeling like that, you're ill, you're down, you don't want to do anything. You want to stay in bed, you want to keep crying, and you don't want to do anything.
mm,
But I've, been working for 24 years of my life. I'll be 40 next year. And it's just that sense of the show goes on,
mhm,
because I'd had a sniffle or two over the years of my broadcasting career. you still go in. If I was at home sick, it was because I thought I was dying.
Hmm.
And so, in October, it was a couple days after my cat had passed away. Saturday, I had to do a show. It was my breast cancer episodes. It was episode 2, I want to say. And I wanted so to just tell everyone it's not going to happen. I can't do these episodes. And then I thought, I'm like, that's not me. My entire career, my entire life, I'm used to, working 7 jobs, sometimes those 7 jobs in one day. And
Wow.
I've always just pushed, pushed, pushed. And I pulled myself together as I always do. And I was just like, you know what? The show goes on and I'm going to
Mm.
do it with a smile. And then when we're done, I can cry later.
Yeah.
And that's how it's been my whole life.
Do you feel that sometimes it's the just the getting your body physically moving and actually just getting to where you're trying to get to, or starting your day, your work day, or going to the gym, whatever it is, that helps you get there and kind of get the mental side going? You get the physical side going first and the mental follows. Is that part
Yeah,
of it?
you know what always helps me. Here's my recipe for that kind of success in the morning. Pray and then take a shower. It starts your day. Just, you
Yep.
prayer and then just cleanse yourself.
You got it.
And showers wakes me up. But yeah, whatever works for someone, just
Yeah.
get your day going. Start because if you're moping around the house in your PJs, slopping around,
Yeah.
you're not gonna be motivated to do anything. Get
Right.
up, move your butt.
Yeah, you got to change. I'm a big believer. You've got to change your pattern, whatever you're doing. That if you are in that funk, and whether it's a thought pattern or just a pattern of actions and behaviors, you've got to change it, mix it up. You've got to shock the system, and ultimately that ultimately will help lead the way to get to a better mental state. But
Yeah.
I think that's important. Also, having the routines in the morning that okay, if I do this, if I pray, take a shower, right away that puts me in a better frame of mind. And whatever the routine is, the fact that you have a routine helps get the day started off right.
It
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
It really does.
yeah. So take me back to the 7 jobs. How did you manage 7 jobs? And tell us about it.
Oh, goodness. Well, what happened with I mean, it was when I was going to school, of course, I purchased my first my first condo. I purchased on my 21st birthday. The day I closed on my condo, I had turned 21. And it was, I had always been very, very independent. I've done everything on my own. I'm very successful. And the reason I push is because I don't have anyone else. So when you don't have someone to fall back on, you just go, you do it. So now I've got, a car payment, I've got a mortgage payment, insurance that comes with all of that, and you have bills, period.
Hmm.
And when you don't, you can't ask anyone for money. So, God love radio. And I hadn't been in that just yet. I was still in school at the time. And then, but through, maybe I cut back down to 4 jobs once I started in radio. But to pay the bills, I was doing, anything from, I think I worked at a law firm as a part time accountant. I worked at the airport. Um, I'd done so many things. I've been in the restaurant business, of course, and
Hmm.
I had just done so many different things. And then I had gotten hired by NBC when I was a writer. I was still doing certain jobs. I think I worked at the airport for 5 years. That overflowed all the way into when I was a traffic reporter when I
Hmm.
started in 2004. 2005, I became a full time traffic reporter, but the bill still had to get paid. And again, like I said, God love radio. I
Yeah.
love what I do. And there's a passion for that because so many people go into it not making a whole lot of money. And that was the problem. So then I, continued working. I think I worked at Nova Southeastern University and I was just here. I was there. I was doing voice work at that point, and that didn't turn full time until 2009. So I kind of had 2 full-time jobs and it was a bit busy because I would go from traffic reporting. My hours were 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. I would see sunlight right around when I walked to the car at, between 1 and 1:30. And
Wow.
then I would sit in the house and record until 9 p.m. at night. So those days were a bit crazy, but that's where that comes from. It's just I've
Yeah.
never had that one job that just,
Yeah.
made all the money and so
Yeah.
I've worked 7 jobs and like I said, sometimes in one day I'd do some voice work and then I'd run out and I'd go do something else. Um
That's
I worked at
amazing.
Nova Southeastern,
Mm,
for a while, and I would do that sometimes in between, and
mm.
that's why I would record later at night.
Yeah. So with the news reporting, how did you get your first opportunity? Was there like one breakthrough moment when you went from news writing to reporting?
Oh, that's actually really funny. So I was getting a little bit sick of the news writing, I have to say. I'd been doing that for a few years, and we were all having a bad day. I remember that. It was just bad for everyone. And here comes the traffic reporter for NBC. And she walked past my desk, and I just remember sitting there and I looked up at her and I go, "Are you hiring?" That's it. she, she handed me her card and she goes, "Call me." And so I did. I gave her a call and she asked me to come in. And there's something to be said for, and now the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale, by the way, is dissolved, but the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale really trained me because I hadn't worked in this scope of things. I hadn't read news, I should say, on my own just yet. I was writing it, but I hadn't read it. I hadn't been in the field yet doing that. So she says, "Okay, well, as I go in for my interview, you're on air in 4 minutes." I'm what? I walked in with my resume thinking I'm going to sit down and it's going to be a light. So she sticks me in a newsroom. I know how to work nothing at this point. Now, imagine that you're sitting in a new place. You've got a board, you've got a microphone in front of you, computers, monitors, and she says go, walks out the door, and
Oh,
I'm live
wow.
somewhere. And I figured it out. And that's why I was like, they're superstar. They'd never seen that. I was like, okay, we got to
That's
figure this
unreal. And
out.
it
And I
was literally
tuned to this.
it was the live news that you were on. It was
I
reporting.
did a 5 minute newscast.
Wow.
Maybe I'm a great BSer because I sat there and what I had done, and for there's probably plagiarism and everything else that goes along with this. I just pulled up the news sources I knew. I pulled up the Sun Sentinel, the Miami Herald, and I just started reading news stories because I didn't have time to reword them or anything. So I
Yeah.
started reading them. Then there was they play a traffic thing for a traffic break. Hadn't known how to report traffic yet, and I somehow did it. And then I did some weather. God only knows how that came out.
Wow. That's amazing. Is this
And I did
recorded somewhere? Like, do you have this tape?
no, and I wish I did. I should ask her. I wish I
Yeah.
did, but I'll never forget. So she walks back in the room after I did that. I'm like, what the heck just happened? Wait. She walked in with her mouth open. She goes, I mean, you're hired. and
Wow. That's
I
amazing.
just, and that's how it all started. And
Wow.
but that's what you pay attention in school.
Yeah.
Just learn what you need to learn. But that
Wow.
was the most nerve-wracking day of my life.
I will bet. And you had no idea. That's a really cool story. I
I had
just
no
know.
idea how to even turn the microphone on,
Well,
but
I
I
was
figured
just
it out.
thinking, before you and I started, the problems that I had. I've been done now 100 plus episodes, and I still have trouble. I'm like, well, why is this not recorded? I can't imagine that going into that situation, that much pressure, and obviously you shone bright, and you got a job. That's how your reporting career started from that. That's
It is.
amazing.
And then I was a traffic reporter after that. And I did, but that's how I rule my whole life. You
Yeah,
just do it. Just
yeah,
do it.
yeah.
You'll figure it out. Just do it.
Well, think about, talking about just do it. And I'm a big believer, you only prepare so much. At some point, you've got to just do it. You've got to take the leap. You took a major leap. You did something that most people, and I know you talk to a lot of people, I do too, that are, they want to, or they wanted to, or they've, for their good part of their career, have had a dream about doing something, being on their own, taking a leap, and they never do it. 95% of people, maybe even 99% of people, never do it. And you did what people have talked about doing, and that's going from a really stable, successful career that you knew, and you took a big leap. Why don't you tell us about that? I'd love to hear the story of what it took to do that.
What did it take to do that? Oh my goodness. It took a lot of sacrifice, I have to tell you. Um, what's funny? I want to take it back real quick to when I was also teaching at the Miami Media School. That was one of the other jobs I had had.
Hmm.
And then I'll move into how I had gone into the full-time work, just voiceover work.
Hmm.
But when I was teaching, um, there are many students. who were paying a lot to go to school who didn't take it seriously, and I couldn't figure that out. And it's funny, out of my class at the Art Institute back in the early 2000s, I'm the only one that stuck with broadcasting. And I still to this day, I'll get a LinkedIn message from a one of my, former fellow students, and they'll say to me, "You realize you're the only one still in this?" Because it's not about the money. Like I said, radio is just you need 7 jobs. That's the unfortunate thing. Unless you make it big and you've got a syndicated show in the morning that pays you 600,000 a year,
Yeah.
you're not making that as a
Mhm.
regular person just on the radio. Um, so I took it seriously. I took it further. I'm just used to pushing, so I worked 7 jobs and I made it work. Other people stepped out of it and they're doing very well selling cars or whatever they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and now I take that to teaching at the Miami Media School, and I was just kind of like, why are these people not taking this seriously? This is an expensive school.
Mhm.
And some people were very successful who came out of it. I'm so proud of some of my students, and others are just, they flunked out, they didn't do so hot, and I can't figure that out.
Mm.
So now you take someone like me who I have a whole lot of just I push myself. I want to do well in this. I want to, and I'm a perfectionist. I want to do well in everything that I do. So I, went ahead and just made the leap to once I think 15 years of traffic reporting was enough. The stress and anxiety of being in there all, morning long and the 5 to 1 with no sleep. And like I said, I'm getting older. I just decided that it was time to take this leap and move from all this reporting and this anxiety that I had all down in South Florida, and I moved to North Florida, and now I am, doing everything on my own. I've created Erika Del Sordo Productions LLC, and from that I operate all of my voiceover work. And it's me. There's something to be said about that because it's no longer working for someone else. When I can't record something, that's on me. You can't just call the next person in. All right, so Erica's not at work today, so we're going to have someone else step in and do her job. There's
Mm.
no one else to do my job. And
Mhm.
so if I'm sick with a sinus infection or something, um, I need to get rid of that quick because people want their voice work in less than a couple days and it needs to go away now.
Mhm. Right.
so
Whole different
so
type
it's
of pressure.
I
Yeah.
feel like I'm working harder, honestly, because when you're and I don't wanna knock anyone, but I'm saying, when you work for someone, it's very easy. "Well, I have a sick day, so I'm just gonna take a sick day." You don't
Mm.
get that when you work for yourself.
Right. Exactly. If you're out, then you're not making money. If you're down,
Right.
so how? What's first of all, what is the voiceover business like for people that? And I'm one of them. I had wanted to get into the voiceover business. So there's the whole part of me that has this fascination with it. What's it like to be a voiceover artist?
It's fun. That's also very fun because it's all different. I've done radio commercials from when I was down south. I do a lot of on-hold messaging, and I was very fortunate to take my South Florida companies that I worked for up to North Florida with me because I had the studio set up. And it was just a very simple transition. If you're listening to a on hold Pizza Hut, you're probably listening to my voice. And it's funny, I get a phone call every now and then from friends, and they're like, I'm on hold with such, and I'm listening to you. It's so funny.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I've done infomercials. I've got that on my website as well, erikadelsordo.com.
Mhm.
I've done different infomercials. I've done voiceovers for restaurants who want a website commercial where if you go to their website, then you can see the video that we did. I was working with a company at the time, and so I voiced over a video for that restaurant and
Mhm.
just many different things. And it's fun. It's
Yeah.
so much fun because, like I said, it's all different. I get to use a different voice. There's another company where I'm voicing for children.
Mhm.
It's a whole learning thing. It's called Top Score Writing.
Mhm.
And so I'm the voice of that. And so when you're looking at these little minions on the screen teaching the children, that's my
Mhm.
voice. And I'm talking like a kid as best I can.
Oh, wow. You know what's interesting? Most people don't realize how precise the business is. I mean, it's not just, talking into a mic, recording, and you're done in 30 seconds. I mean, I went to a class I took on voiceover artistry, and I was amazed at how exact and really specific the client would be with regard to what they're looking for, and how you pronounce a word, the tonality, the pitch, the volume, the pace. I mean, all this that factors in, and you might do 10 different, takes or versions, and they really do sound very different. And there's so much variability and interpretation that you have to do in terms of what they're looking for. Is that challenging? And first of all, am I right about that? And is that challenging as a voiceover
You
artist?
you are. There's one commercial that I had done down south that was extraordinarily difficult in the sense of this. And if you, again, go to my website and you'll find O Palm Beach. It's O Palm Beach Resort and Spa. I sat in a recording session. It was the classic. I had the seven executives on the other side of the glass. They were all listening and watching the commercial as it went by. And then I was behind the glass with the microphone and my cup of coffee, and I was doing the read. Now, I've been, not to blow smoke up my own, you know what I'm saying, but usually it's just one and done. I would do a read because I've done it for so many years and it
Hmm.
would be done. They're like, okay, thanks, have a great day.
Hmm.
This one was, I was in there for 3 hours. Let's start there. It was
Wow.
a 3 hour session. And my reading type, I don't know, it's corporate, girl next door, friendly. I just have a very friendly read.
Hmm.
And they had pulled me off of one of the sites that I'm on. And they said, okay, we want you to sound, I don't know, it's a bad word. They were like, you have to sound like a nasty person.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, you pulled me off this site, and that's
Yeah.
not what I do.
Yeah.
So that's what made it very difficult. They wanted a very dry read. They wanted the woman to sound nasty.
Hmm.
I can't even describe it. And so it was not, they said, we don't want any inflection. Well, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I inflect.
Yeah. That's
so,
strange. Yeah.
so this was very difficult. They didn't like anything. And then it was about 2 hours and 55 minutes into it. I started getting very angry. I was hungry. I was tired. I'm like, okay. And that's the read they took. They liked that I sounded annoyed and upset. And so you'll
Maybe that
listen to this commercial
that's
and you'll
funny.
hear that. And it still doesn't sound that bad,
Maybe
but
that was part of
I
their
was just
plan. They just wanted to get you angry and
I
have you.
think you picked the wrong person.
That's funny. Well, is there a lot of competitiveness? I mean, it's a pretty big industry, and people don't
Mhm.
realize there's a lot of genres. I mean, from the corporate trainings and the voicemails and the documentaries and the whatever cartoons, whatever. There's a lot of different genres, right?
There are, and I always tell people also because I do get a lot. I love your voice. I love your voice, and I was born with the voice. Honestly, like I said on the radio 22 years ago at the police department, they would be like, "You have a great radio voice." Well, it wasn't even perfected yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just born with it. But you don't have to have a radio sounding voice. If you think about it, and some of it is acting, but if you think about it, I could never on a television commercial play the voice of a male surfer. What's
Mm-hmm.
up, dudes? Like you need the voice of everyone.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for not everyone on television needs to look like Cindy Crawford,
Right.
and Hugh Grant, or you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yeah.
It's everyone. It encompasses everyone. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at that, you can have any kind of voice because you never know who's looking for what. And the
Mm-hmm.
same thing goes for your face and your body.
Yeah.
That doesn't, necessarily eliminate anyone. So even though I have a corporate sounding voice and I get told all the time I like your voice, um, it has nothing to do with that. You can be a voice artist and still do work successfully
Mm-hmm.
because that's needed.
Yeah, I think that, and there's a good takeaway there because I think a lot of people also feel like they need to be the master of everything. And I dealt with this when I was starting my business about how broad do you go versus how narrow and specific. And there's a lot to be said for really being very narrow, specific, and really being excellent at that one very narrow, specific area versus trying to wear every hat that's out there. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, exactly what you're saying. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
sometimes I have to tell you, I got a job, and they were like, "Well, we need this." They wanted me to sound like a man. I kid you not. So I'm like, "Let me find one of my male friends who can do this for you." So it's interesting what people request, what people, the
Yeah.
resources that you need, and that it's
Yeah.
just very interesting.
Now, did you get or do you get coaching?
No, but you know what? I am going to look into that. I
Mhm.
recently had I had a bit of an issue with my voice, and I went to the doctor. This is just recent. What's today? No, I went last week. So I went to the doctor last week, and we were discussing, my voice and why is it doing this. And so they went down with a scope. They looked at my vocal cords. My vocal cords are beautiful. We can't figure out why I get, the scratchiness I get sometimes. Maybe it's allergies. But with that said, he was discussing with me about a coach. And he said, don't take any offense to that. I said, I don't take offense to anything. That's, fine by me. But, we were discussing, everyone has a coach. Brad Pitt gets an acting coach before every big gig. And look who he is.
Hmm.
Everyone has a coach for something. Opera singers, they have a coach. So we had discussed that. And I said, well, that's wonderful. I'd never thought of that. And so now I'm going to look into probably getting coaching, because I don't know why sometimes I'm straining my voice. And it
Hmm.
might just be because I've never had that proper coaching. I speak the way I speak. I've done it for many years, and I've never realized maybe I'm doing it wrong.
Mm. Well, it is amazing at how and you do speak phenomenally well and you enunciate very well. I've lived in probably 30 different places in my life and many spots around the country, so you pick up accents at different points. I know when I went in for some doing some learning about voiceovers, they're like, yeah, you got to get rid of your accent. I'm like, I don't realize I have an accent. Like, oh yeah, you got a big accent. So that's another thing. People, I think, can get coached, right? They can get coached out of those accents. And somebody wanting to get into the voiceover business, I guess the point
Mhm.
is that, some people naturally have great enunciation and great voice, but there's a lot of opportunity to learn and develop that too. It's not just a God-given gift. It's something that can be developed.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are certain things you do, it's funny in the morning, we'd make a joke out of it when I was doing traffic reporting, but the gentleman who was in the helicopter and myself, we would do our, your exercises, and would be over the mic because he's in the air and I'm going, ah, ooh, and you
Yeah.
got to do these stupid, weird, but you really did, because it's 5 in the morning. I didn't wake up at 1 a.m. I rolled out of bed, jumped in the shower,
Yeah.
got to work. I haven't spoken a word. So now
Mm.
I'm sitting down and my voice is not what it is at 3 p.m. You
Right.
know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
have to sit there and you have to do stupid things and start singing and open your mouth wide and start exercising your voice, because there were mornings when I would sit down and I would go to report and I'm like, whew, that was a bad one. Like,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
because I just wasn't ready to go yet. And it sounded like I was sleeping. And then there's something to be said about that, in that industry, being live and stuff, you can't sound that's a big part of where I get my oomph.
Yeah.
You can't go on the air because you're tired, sounding like you're tired. I couldn't go on and be like, oh,
Right.
traffic. You got, it doesn't matter if you're ready for your deathbed. You better sound like I do right now.
Right.
you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
there's no time for
Yeah.
sounding any other way other than awake and alive.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, for those people who might be listening or watching to this at a different period of time, we're right at the beginning, January 2021. We've just finished 2020. How has COVID affected your both your voiceover business, and also I want to talk about your podcast, which you have. How has COVID impacted those?
Yes, actually a lot. I'm happy that you want to discuss this because, oh my goodness, I had just had a podcast myself talking about just the blessing and the curse of 2020. That pandemic, my podcast was born, and that was a scary thing. And we'll get to that in a moment. But at the same time, I lost a lot of voice work when the pandemic initially happened, and I think it was in its prime in like March, April. Everyone got scared. Businesses shut down. So all the voice work that I do for companies, all the on hold messaging, and of course the commercials, everything just shut down.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting here going, "Oh, I still have bills."
Yeah. Right.
what what do you do with that? And fortunately, because of the pandemic and everything, you make some phone calls and you tell people, "Hey, I don't have a paycheck coming in," and there was a lot of leniency there.
Yeah.
But it really only started to pick back up end of the summer.
Hmm.
That really affected my voice work, and that
Right.
that is scary
Yeah.
because you don't have anything to fall back on. I'm not working for a company where I've got vacation time and sick time and everything else that you can maybe fall back on.
Hmm. But you kept going, you kept doing your podcast. Tell us about
Mhm.
the podcast. What do audiences get when they listen to your podcast? Which I've been on and I love your podcast. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. So this was born out of COVID. Um, and again, it was scary because I'd never done anything like this. I'd never interviewed folks, for a living. Maybe I'd done it a few times back in school in 2001 or something like that, but never this extent. And again, I'm not used to being in front of the camera a whole lot.
Mhm.
So this was scary for me. But the reason it was born is because I had a cousin, my mother's age, but she was dying of brain cancer. And I was over her house with her daughter, my cousin, and we're talking. And she was telling me, she's like, this is nuts. She has three kids at home. She owns her own insurance company. She's my very first podcast, March 23rd, 2020. And so she has the insurance business. Not only is she taking a cut, she had to cut her employees because nothing's coming in. So now she's got to homeschool her kids, and her mom is dying.
Mm.
This was like, so I sat there and I thought, I have had so many people ask me to do a podcast. And I was like, I need to buck up like I always do, and let's do it.
Mhm.
I got on Zoom and I, did it on my cell phone the first few times. And I said, let's do it. And the funny thing is, out of her show, it was so um empowering, if you will, because people were like, oh my gosh, everyone's going through the same thing. You got kids at home. What do you do with that? I've
Mhm.
never homeschooled, kind of like
Mhm.
that. um Her business, there were a lot of my friends own their own businesses, so they're
Mhm.
like, wow, what is she doing?
Mhm.
And then there's the whole, her mother was dying, and it got to the point where she couldn't even visit her mom. Her mother ended up passing April 16th of 2020.
Mm.
Whew. But that's where this was born. And what was so amazing is that I had so much amazing feedback from that one show where, again, I thought I was a disaster
Mm.
because I didn't really know what I was doing. I had a few questions lined up. She's my cousin, so it made it a little bit more comfortable than
Mhm.
doing this with a stranger. But I stuck this on social media and it blew up. I
Mhm.
had interviews up the wazoo. For the
Wow.
next several months, I was booked. I had a podcasting company. Skyhawk Radio. Skyhawk Radio. And here's another testament to when you remain professional your whole life. I had done some voice work with him down south as well, but he was one of my teachers. Brian Campbell was one of my teachers at the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. And he had asked me for several years, start a podcast, and I just didn't. And when I put this on social media, this first podcast with my cousin, he must have seen it because he calls me up and he goes, are you ready to do this? I said, oh, I guess so. So now he handles my audio portion of my podcast.
Great. That's fantastic. And do you love it?
I love it. I
Yeah.
really do love it. Talk about something different all the time. I know I had you on recently. If everyone
Mhm.
everyone can go and find your show, that was recent in 2020. It was one of the
Mhm.
later ones. And it's there's always something different. I love speaking to people. I love learning new things from people.
Mhm.
I'm sticking with what I know. I'm doing the YouTube portion of my podcast, so I'm editing the video and I'm doing what I did 20 years ago in school.
Mhm.
And so it's very exciting, and I'm so happy that the podcast was born out of the pandemic.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm inspired by everything you've done. I love your story. I know the time has flown by and we're running short on time, but you've got an audience of people that I'm sure are very interested in what you've been talking about taking leaps and doing what you're passionate about, and even the stories that you've told that have shared, stepping outside your comfort zone, everything. What parting words do you want to share? I mean, what would be this one piece of advice to the listeners out there that coming off maybe a really tough year, maybe looking at 2021, not knowing what to expect? What advice would you give to them?
If you have a passion to do something, do it. Don't wait, and make sure you love what you do because it really makes life that much easier. When I crack the microphone, I open the mic and I start my recordings, or I know that I'm in the right spot, that I'm doing what I want to do and something that I do well. And I love that. So I think to keep everyone's sanity in life, do something that you love. And I understand that sometimes you got to go outside of that because you need a paycheck, bills are due, but start somewhere. Start somewhere, maybe work outside of that job that you have and start with your passion
Hmm.
and make it grow. make it grow. I want to mention one of the other guests that I had on my show. It was a gentleman here in North Florida with me. Him and his wife are fantastic people, but he works for a corporate company, and him and his friends started a greenhouse business. And I have him on the show. It was one of my earlier shows. But there you go. He still has
Mhm.
this corporate business. They're trying to see how this turns out. They're doing very well with their greenhouses. They've actually
Mhm.
been building them throughout the country, more so out of Florida, which is ironic.
Mhm.
But that's what you do. You just start somewhere and
Mhm.
make yourself happy and do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life.
I love it. Great advice, and I could not agree more. And that's such a good thought to leave the audience with. So, if people want to find out more about you, they want to follow you, they want to listen to your podcast, how do they do that?
Well, you can find me on todaystalkwitherica.com, and I have a blog as well, so I've been writing that. So there's a blog there. You can find all of my audio podcasts there as well. ErikaDelSordo.com. If you would like to check out my voice work, you can also find my podcast there as well. But there's so many different things that you can find on these different ones. So todaystalkwitherica.com, ErikaDelSordo.com, and from there you can find all of my social media links. Just find me anywhere, and by the way, there's advertising abilities as well with my new mobile app. I now have a mobile app. That's amazing. This is what I mean. Brian Campbell set me up with a wonderful gentleman who put me on the Android and iOS app. And
Mm.
so now I've got opportunities for folks to advertise with me. And there you can watch the YouTube video if you click on it, or you can just listen straight out of the app. So it's
Mm.
wonderful.
I love that. I'll have to talk to you about that. That's interesting. Well, excellent. It has been so much fun having you on here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing your story. It is inspiring. I know you've impacted people that have been listening, and I hope you come back again sometime.
I would love to come back. Thank you so much for having me on.
E-
Thank you.
Excellent. And thanks everybody for watching today. We've been here with Erika Del Sordo, professional voiceover artist, podcaster, and an inspiring story of success. Thank you for joining today. Make sure, as always, you share, subscribe, give the thumbs up, add comments, go down below, give the 5-star review. You know all this stuff. And again, have a great day. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everybody.